let's talk about the book. So we're never lose an employee again. And
Yes.
inside of there, you talk about an employee going through 8 different phases of experience. What does that look like? Let's map that out for people so they can kind of visualize this.
Absolutely. Well, I think many employers think about the employee journey as you're a prospective employee. We bring you in and interview you. We hire you. And then you work here until you quit, retire, or are fired. And pretty short and sweet. What I wanted to do is actually dissect the employee experience into a series of steps to, number one, make it easier for us to plan and strategize and build our interactions and our communications with our employees. But more importantly, to recognize the emotional and mental journey that accompanies the more physical journey of being an employee. And so what we've done is identify 8 key phases in the employee journey. Now, I'll tell you, Michael, they all start with the letter A, and that isn't to confuse people, but rather to think of it as if you get each step in this process right, it's like getting straight A's on your report card from the teacher or from your employees, right? They say, hey, you did a great job at every step of the way. So let me, if I may, with your permission, give a brief overview of each of the 8 phases, and then we can dive into whichever ones sound most interesting. The first phase is the assess phase. In the assess phase, a prospective employee is trying to decide whether or not they want to come work with you. They're looking at your job listing, your job descriptions. They're checking out the career page on your website. They might be reading reviews on Glassdoor. They're talking to other people they know. They're checking out your social media profiles. They're getting a feel. They apply for the position. They go through your interview process. This is kind of the courting of, am I going to become an employee? Am I going to be selected? We then move to phase 2, the accept phase. 2 things happen in the accept phase. Number one, the employer accepts that this is the person they want. They say, we've looked at the couple candidates. You're the one we want. They make a formal job offer. If we're lucky, that candidate accepts our offer and transitions from being a prospect to being an employee. We then come to the 3rd phase, Michael, and I got to tell you, this is a phase where a lot of organizations miss huge opportunities. This is the affirm phase. Now, you might be familiar in a customer context with the phrase buyer's remorse. Allow me to introduce our listeners to a new phrase you might not be as familiar with, new hire's remorse. The research shows that a new hire experiences the same chemical reactions in the brain and emotional reactions in the heart of a brand new customer, in that they begin to doubt the decision they just made to accept your offer. And if you doubt the validity of that statement, I ask you just to think about a time in your own career when you applied for a job, and maybe you were applying for more than one job at a time. And you heard an offer from one, but you hadn't heard back from the other ones. And now you feel like you're on the gun. You're trying to get the other people that are outstanding to make a decision. So maybe you can get them to negotiate against themselves. And what often happens is we have to accept that first offer with incomplete information because we're not sure about the other positions we were interviewing for. And so what do? We doubt our own decision. Or if you're not interviewing for other places and you get into the interview or negotiation process after an offer has been made and you finally alight on, this is the package I'm going to agree to, most people are wondering, should I have asked for more? Could I have gotten more vacation? Could I have gotten a higher salary? Did I really negotiate and get everything I could have? So we're in this state. We haven't even had the first day on the job, and we are feeling tenuous about our relationship with the employer. We then come to phase 4, the activate phase. The activate phase is the only phase in the 8 phases that is limited to 1 day on the calendar. And that day is the first day on the job. When you show up at work, what is that experience like? And I like to think about in the activate phase, that famous song by the country music icon Bonnie Raitt, where she says, give them something to talk about. At the end of the day, when your employee goes home, when they open the door to their spouse, their significant other, their children, their family, or they're driving home and they call their roommate or their parents, and what is the first question they're going to be asked? How was the first day on the job? How are your employees going to answer that? If you hear nothing else in this podcast But that question, and you think about how can we make sure that our employees on the first day on the job, that we've given them something to talk about, your employee experience will be better. We then come to the acclimate phase, phase 5, right? We're halfway through the phases and we've just had the first day on the job. But the acclimate phase is where things really slow down and where things often get missed. Because while I'm sure there is someone at your organization that to some degree is paying attention to the new employee's first day on the job, who at your company is responsible for day 2 and day 4 and day 10 and day 30 and day 50 and carrying that out throughout their entire career? In most organizations, there isn't a single person responsible for that. In the acclimate phase, our new employees becoming used to our way of doing business, our communication styles, our cadence of interactions, the various people we work with, our roles and responsibilities. You have to hold the hand of your new employee while they acclimate to this new environment. And if you do that well, you reach the next phase, phase 6, the accomplish phase, when the employee achieves the goal they originally had when they decided to do business with you. Every employee has a vision of what it will be like to work for you. Are we delivering on that vision? It may be a promotion. It may be a certain pay period or pay raise or pay level, if you will. It may be a certain type of work they're doing or responsibility or autonomy. If we're not tracking and paying attention to that and then celebrating with the employee when they achieve it, we have no hope of getting them to the last 2 phases. Phase 7, the adopt phase, when they become loyal to us and only us, they're not going anywhere else. They're not picking up the call from the headhunter or the recruiter. And phase 8, the final phase, when they become a raving fan, singing our praises far and wide, writing reviews on Glassdoor, recruiting their friends for open positions. These are the 8 phases. And we've got to hold our employees' hands through each phase as they transition to the next one, if we hope to have long-term engaged and retained employees.
Yeah. And, in our audience is mostly family-owned businesses or people that consult with them. So for them, the Edelman Trust Barometer says that family-owned businesses have a smidge higher trust than the non-family-owned businesses.
Yes.
And what I would say is to take and keep that trust, and employees feel the same way. In order to keep that trust, you best be getting them through these phases and be thinking about these things as you're doing it so that you can keep that high level of trust that the non-family owned businesses don't have.
Michael, it's so true. And here's the interesting thing, especially for family-owned businesses. Lots of times someone comes into the family-owned business and eventually there's going to be a transition to their running the business, right? Not always, but often.
Yep.
As we navigate through the various roles in an organization as an employee, every time we get promoted, we go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Whoa, wait a second, folks. I'm already an adopter. I'm loyal. Don't I just stay an adopter? No, no, no. We go back to the first day on the new job with the new title, with the new roles, responsibilities. We have a whole new acclimate phase, which often requires unlearning some of the things we learned and or relearning them from a different perspective or point of view. And so to think that we're done at any point in this journey is a mistake, because I would posit that even when the person retires or leaves, we still want them to be an advocate. We still need to be in relationship with them. So many employers take a burn the boats mentality when somebody leaves. They're like, oh, they're gone. Forget about it. We'll never speak of them again. And it's like, no, you want people in the marketplace saying, oh my gosh, the best place I ever worked was Acme Corp. I know I'm somewhere else now, but oh, that place was amazing. You want them talking about it, or even saying, for a first-time job right out of school, they're amazing. They give great training. You're probably not going to be there your whole career, but for your first 3, 4, 5 years, that's foundational. We all know there are businesses that have that reputation of being really good on training, really good on networking, really good on building your skill sets, whatever it may be. What kind of business do you want to be known for in the marketplace as it relates to the employee experience? I understand how you want to be known for your brand promise and what you do in terms of the products or the services you provide. But if we were to gather all the employees in your community and say your company's name, what would people say? What have they heard about you? Who do they know who works with you? What has the experience been like of those who have?
Love it. Love it. And we happen to be lucky in the Rochester, New York area. We have Wegmans Food Markets is number 3 on the employee satisfaction, charts. And I had several of our kids work for Wegmans. And one of the things that was their attributes was if you wanted 1 shift or you wanted 20 shifts, you just signed up for it. And as long as you had been through training and done those things, the kids could come home from college and be like, I want to pick up a couple of extra shifts, but I'm on break. I don't want to be, all in for too many hours. And they were like, done. And so, they could bring these trained people in, they were ready to go, and they made it easy on them. They didn't have to go looking for something when they were on break. Just one little attribute that they did for the employees to make their lives better.
I love it. And here's the great thing, Michael. One could look at that from the perspective of, look at Wegmans did to make the employee's life better. But Wegmans also made their own life better with this model. They had a cadre of trained, ready employees that they could call on at a moment's notice. If they know it's going to be a high season, they could reach out to people and say, hey, want to pick up a day, a shift here or there? And what they recognized, it sounds like early on and clearly continuing, is that flexibility of employment is increasingly the number one thing that employees are looking for.